Wind, an extra little video that I make after we do the big session of the Urslok Chronicles. And today we're going to be talking about the one that is immediately on the screen for you guys, Season 1, Episode 2, Big Worries of a Little Wizard. So today's plan goes as follows. I will be talking about what happened in the session. I'm going to be talking about what I think went well and what I think didn't go quite so well. My finger just clicked and it was a little painful. Then I'm going to be talking about any of the kind of the techie stuff. So if you're a little tech-minded, you can stick around for that. And then I'm going to be talking immediately after that about what the plan is for the next session and what I'm thinking about doing and things like that. So that's going to be a little bit of a spoilerific area. So if you're not into that, you can absolutely skip that bit. And, I won't judge you too harshly. But do make sure to pop back over here once you've seen that episode, which is going to be airing. I've just had the date up a moment ago. That's going to be airing on the 8th of March. So if you've watched that episode, you can then come back over here to this episode of the DM Talks, the Second Wind, and you'll be able to kind of check to see if everything that I planned goes to plan or not, because I'm going to guarantee you it probably won't. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk about the last session. So the last session opened up with my players chilling out and basically buying themselves some shoes and some socks. That was a real fun portion of the session. That was just a little bit of role play, a little bit of them getting into character and spending some time with a new character that they've only just met. I'm just going to go through my notes because I'm awful at remembering names. Ziltori. They spent some time with Ziltori, a very posh little gecko who sold Alor some new shoes and made Avi some socks. And we got some real fun role play out of Michael as well. After that, they kind of went through the city streets. I kind of built up the city a little more for them as they were entering it more into the evening portion of the day. And then they managed to go off into a tavern, which was called the Sodden Leaf Inn, run by a very big, very boisterous, very characterful bolster bearer. They arrived, and immediately Michael and Avi were being kind of scrutinized by some of the wizards in this tavern, because the tavern was a university tavern. It had lots of students, lots of people studying, lots of people learning. The entire tavern was kind of built around the idea of it being sort of like a library / study area for these students. And Bolster Bearer was kind of tapping into that market a bit. So when they arrived, Michael being a construct and one with a certain amount of emotion that like one of the people there couldn't quite get their head around was Michael has emotion or thinks that they have emotion. It was a really interesting moment. And then you have Avi arriving, who it's kind of a rarity to see a mole person above ground. So to see those two in the same kind of situation turned a lot of heads, and a lot of people started making notes. At which point, my favorite bit of roleplay, entirely improv, was when Avi was just like, it's rude to talk about somebody behind their back, absolutely terrifying this tiny little mouse person, whose name was Elfie. And they studied biology, which is why they were very interested in Avi in the first place. So Michael, being Michael, absolutely killed it with just the arm outstretched, you will give me an offering. At which point Avi kind of took that and rolled with it, saying that if you don't give an offering, then they won't be able to talk. So it was so funny. Just the fact that then, because they kind of spooked this guy, he just flicked out all of his coins and like gave 4 coins over instead of the one that he wanted to. Luckily though, a law was there, kind of handed over some of the coins that made up the difference between what he wanted to spend and what he actually did spend. So that was really fun, characterful moment, and they kind of sat and talked for a while. And Avi got a little bit more information about what it's like topside, what the city's like. Whilst this little mouse got more information about what like AV is and why they're here. Having kind of said that they'd only ever met one other mole, which is a very kind of rare thing to have happen to them. So then, whilst Michael was kind of standing there, listening to this conversation, a badger came up behind them and started measuring their head. Now, Michael didn't notice this because Michael was focused on this little conversation, and they're not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. They're one half of a head shy of a full statue, you could say. Now, AV, however, absolutely spotted this and got up and stood up for Michael. This badger was just measuring Michael for scientific purposes without really considering asking, because constructs don't have feelings. Now, AV managed to shoo off this guy, make him leave with the threat of some violence, which he didn't want. He's not that kind of guy. Or is he? Bum bum bum. So they then have this, like, Michael and Avi have this conversation about how does Michael have feelings? And this was such an interesting moment because it added a little philosophical twist that I hadn't thought about to the character. Because they're a statue, do they have feelings? This was just something that we hadn't considered, and it was something that I think we're going to be considering over the course of sessions, and I think that's a very cool thing, but that's going to go into what I think went well. We'll lay off from that. Now, whilst this was happening, Law was actually over at the bar with Gilfrey, Rhoda, and also Bowster Bearer. Bowster had introduced herself and like sold them some drinks, and also had kind of introduced herself as this big kind of boisterous character, as she basically slapped Gilfrey as soon as he arrived in a kind of rubbish attempt at a joke, basically making him a little bit scared that he'd done something in the past that he couldn't quite remember. But then she quickly kind of let that pass. Now, Rhoda and Gilfrey, they got themselves some rooms whilst they were there. And the party haven't quite managed to get to that point yet. But what they did do is they did level up. They dinged. So, what they did was they laid out some coins, and they managed to buy themselves a great meal and some drinks, and absolutely fantastic chance for them to role play a little bit more. So they leveled up. So the way that leveling up works in the Black Hack is you spend coins to basically have a good time and tell stories about what happened to you out there in the wild. So they shared stories about what happened to them back at home. They shared stories about what happened to them now. Those stories gained the attention of one very drunken wizard, his name being Merfish Tidesdale, a tiny little male frog. I say tiny, he's like human size. He's like 5, 6, 7, 9, whatever. I don't know human sizes. So he comes over and is like, look, you guys seem to be, competent adventurers. My friends have gone missing. We're supposed to be getting involved in the magical tournament that's coming up at the end of this month. This sets them out on an investigative path. They pick him. They get him to take them to the dorm room, and they go to the dorm room. Whilst going, Michael picks it up, like Merfish Tidesdale, arms outstretched, so that he can act basically like a sat nav because he's extremely drunk and he's just like swaying all over the place, like throwing up and things. They manage to get to the dorm room where they all do investigation, and they absolutely bomb it. It's absolutely awful. But they managed to get a few key pieces of information. One, that whoever was there had greasy paws and it looked like a cat paw. And 3, didn't look like there was too much of a struggle, or they couldn't figure out if there was too much of a struggle because the room was already pretty much of a mess. However, they did ask one of the neighbors, who said that there had been a bit of a kerfuffle and a bit of like shouting and yelling, but they didn't think of anything of it because those lads had been practicing magic like the whole evening, and nothing had really, like, it didn't seem untoward that that would be the type of thing that would happen. So, they figure the best way to go. Another piece of information they got, I almost completely forgot about this. Another piece of information they got from both the person they spoke to next door and also Murfish, because it was actually only Avi and Michael that went out to ask the neighbors. A law actually stuck around to sober up Murfish. Murfish and the person next door said that they both had run-ins with two kind of rich kids. The first of whom is Baltor Fallowvox Happlestan III, and is a badger. And then the next one is Gilfrax Galloway, a crow, who repeats everything that Baltor says. Now they go, shit, that's our lead. We need to follow that. They book it straight down to the Happlestan estate to question. Now, Alor decides to kind of scope the joint out a little bit. So he walks around the building. He's like looking through windows. Suddenly he gets spotted by a tiny little bird, a parakeet, who's like, wait, why are you looking through our window? Stop looking through our window. He continues around the building, kind of acting like, well, shit, oh no, I didn't get seen, oh no. The two, Avi and Michael pretends to be a statue in the garden, kind of blending in with all the statues. Avi knocks on the door, rat-tat-tat. Opens the door, a badger, suddenly familiar to them. The badger from the bar. They turn around and they're like, oh, but they're not doing that in character. Suddenly, like, the players are like, whoa! Again, I'm getting a little bit into what went well. So, they suddenly need to play it cool a little bit. So, Avi is like, oh, I hear you like to study constructs, and then introduces them to Michael. And the guy's like, oh, like, what's his name again? Fallowvox is like, oh god, I really wanna study this guy because magical constructs are my thing. He really wants to study this guy. But just behind him, out of the room, with a bolsterous, if you won't get rid of them, I will, comes a cat, and then a fox. The cat, covered in mechanical grease, dressed to the nines in... I say dressed to the nines, dressed up as a kind of mechanic. And then the fox, dressed to the nines, in a full suit and a pipe. And that's where the session ended, with them being threatened at a door. Now, what do I think went really well about this session? I think the thing that went really well about that session is that I seeded in a lot of things. So, the cat is one that they got hinted at in the first session, and it stuck with them, right? That cat was specifically pointed out when they entered into the shoe and sock shop, and they remembered it. The badger, given to them, or kind of introduced to them at the beginning of the session, was remembered at the end. That is one of the biggest takeaways I'm taking from this session. Seed things in, and then sometimes let them brew a little bit. Now, I know one session isn't a lot of time, but we play every other week. That's a long time for that to be there. Introduce something, let it brew a little bit, have it come back. That absolutely just destroyed the table in a good way, right? That was a bomb that went off under the table when they were like investigating and I was like, oh yeah, that's a cat paw. That's a greasy cat paw. And then Jack, my player, went, wait a minute, a cat? It was amazing. And then when I had the badger like examining Michael, and then one of the people that the merfish was having issues with was a badger, everybody at the table went, wait a minute, badger? It's such a great moment. And immediately after the session ended and we kind of stopped the stream, they were saying, like my players were saying, that is something that's going to stick with them, because now they're going to be paying attention to what's happening in the game. And that's creating engagement for players, seeding things in. Sometimes it's something from their backstory, sometimes it's something that could come up again later on. It creates this an engagement, because now they don't know what's important and what's not. I could turn around to them and say, I don't know, the person that you're speaking to, whilst you're talking to them, suddenly takes out a piece of paper and writes something down. Folding it up, he calls in his servant, handing the piece of paper over, whispering something into his ear as he leaves, and continues the conversation on with you. And then, maybe a session, like at the end of the session, a session, 2 sessions later, they try and go to this other person's house, and they're like, yes, I knew you'd come. And they're like, well, why? And then he holds up the letter. It could be stuff like that, right? Seed it in, make it matter, and make it feel like the players are like the kind of the center of the world, whilst also other things are happening around them, right? They're just one part of the world, whilst other cogs are ticking over and twisting and turning. That's what I think went really well. As far as things I don't think went super well, I'm not sure, actually, because I actually really enjoyed that session. However, actually no, there is one thing that I think didn't go quite as well. It was the outer character talking. Now, this is a little bit on me, because basically I didn't do as quite a comprehensive a session 0 as I should have, and I'm kind of noticing that now. Session 0s, for anybody who doesn't know, are where you sit your players down and you basically chat to them entirely about the world, the setting, your expectations, their expectations, and you try and basically make sure that you're all on exactly the same page. It's really good to make sure that that happens. However, I didn't do quite as extensive as one. I made sure that I knew what they wanted. I made sure that they knew what I wanted. I made sure to like outline the world as best as I could. However, some things didn't get communicated quite as well. Case in point, as soon as I introduced the mouse, what was the mouse's name? I prefer referring to people as their names. Elfie. As soon as I introduced the mouse, the question of scales came up. Is this a standard sized mouse? Or is this a human sized mouse? Or is this bigger? That, if I had done my session 0 properly, where I'd outlined scales in this world are just basically human sized, but they're just mice, it would have made more sense, and I wouldn't have had to have that conversation, because then it kind of got a bit deraily and off the topic a little bit. Now, again, that's on me. I could have reined that back in. However, I don't want to be too firm, but I also don't want it to go too wild. So it's one of those I'm going to have to kind of watch myself on. So that's what I think kind of went bad. And I think next session I might try being a little bit more like, right guys, that's a fun conversation, let's focus it back down. Now this is the side of the stream where I get a little tacky, a little tech. This is not going to be fun if you're not so technically minded. So I'll make this as brief as possible. In the last session, in the session before this one, in episode 1, I said that I was going to attempt to use cameras in the session, so that we could have like maybe a face cam or 2, or maybe like a table cam or something like that. Now, I tried it. I did everything that I could. I bought myself like a little GoPro tripod mount, so I could hang it from one of the microphone stands, so that we could have a table cam. I took out like two of my webcams and like set them up to be like face cams and stuff. Basically, I had the whole setup working. I even spent a good portion of one of my days basically lining up the audio to the capture card that I've got to make sure that everything would sync up okay. The thing I didn't do was a dress rehearsal to show that it would not have worked even if I'd done that. Now, I don't have a studio. We're not recording in a studio, guys. We're recording in my house, right? With my friends come over. We sit at our like came with the flat table with like some cloth over it to make sure that like when we do dice rolls it doesn't go. You know, I live here. This is my living space. We don't have those fun little like backdrops, you know, with like brick texture and like a door and like candles and things. I don't have any of that. My space is lived in, and as such, when I put the cameras on, it looked like a live-in space. Now that would be really nice and kind of mom and pop-ish, if you will, if it was for the fact that we had places to store all the things that we have in here and it wasn't quite as, I don't want to say messy because it's not messy, like things are where they need to be, it's just it didn't look good. That's kind of the gist of this. My phone just vibrated. What's going on? Did I get a text message? I very rarely get text messages. Fair enough. So it's kind of one of those things where I was looking at it, I was like, if I want to do this, I want to do this properly, and I'm not going to be able to do this properly if it looks that way. Now, again, I love mom and pop stuff. I love watching people like sitting in their kitchen playing D&D, but that's a level of like cleanliness, I guess. Like, they don't have like sofas in the background which are like distracting. They don't have like pictures up in there that are distracting. They don't have like their streaming kit off into the left corner and two computers in the living room because that's where, you know, the DM and his partner like play video games. You know, there's none of that stuff like dossing about in there. So we didn't do cameras, and it does frustrate me and upset me because I would love to kind of introduce you guys visually to what we're doing and how we're playing, because we do get like when something goes badly, like Jack laid out on the floor, which was hilarious. It was really fun. And like Loren is so physical in her acting that I feel like adding a camera would give you guys that glimpse as to like the fact that we're 100% into this. But unfortunately, because of how my life is and how my setup is at the moment, that's not something that's going to be able to work for me and for you. In all fairness, it's not going to work for you. So that's all the tech stuff really that I wanted to talk about. Some of the audio things, actually, there was an audio issue where Loren was very loud. Now, we are having this problem quite a lot because Gina was very quiet. Now Loren's very loud. The problem I've got is I don't want to turn around to my players and be like, can you be quiet? Because that sucks, right? You don't want to be that player that enjoys role playing and your character's loud. You don't want to be the guy that turns around and says, don't role play. But at the same time, we do have, basically I have a 2-input Focusrite, which is handling 3 inputs now because I bought a Y splitter for one of the audio channels, which means I only have two inputs that I can control, and one of those inputs is taking 2 microphones, and those microphones are mine, Jack and Loren's, and if Loren's loud, there's nothing I can do about it. So at the moment I am pricing up a couple of things. I'm seeing if there's a potential that I could be able to get like a bigger input device so that I can control the audio a little bit better. But that's something I'm going to have to look into. So you are going to have to bear with like a little bit of the loudness. I do apologize for that. It's something that I am honestly working on. I am looking into. So you are going to have to bear with that. Now, after that, I want to talk about what I'm going to be doing in the next session. So this is going to be spoilerific. So if you are planning on joining us on the next session, I only said what date that was, like maybe 15 minutes ago. That is Sunday, the 8th of March. If you are planning on joining us on Sunday, the 8th of March, do not listen to this next bit, because this is where the session is going to be going and what plans I have for it. And I'm also going to be planning maybe a little bit whilst we're on here. Probably not, because, to be honest, they got to a point which was towards the end of the session that I had already planned, kind of going into the next one. So we'll see what happens. So if you don't want to listen and you're planning on watching, please, you can cut the thing off now. I'll give you a moment to do that. I'm awesome and I want to watch the next stream. I want to watch the next stream. So I'm not gonna listen to the spoilers that Andy's gonna give me. Not gonna listen to the spoilers that Andy's gonna give me. Oh. Okay, that should be everybody who's... don't know what that song was. I'm very sorry that you had to hear that. That's everybody that's going to be joining us on the next stream or doesn't want to hear the spoilerific bits. Now, basically, as I said a minute ago, my players managed to get up to basically the last portion of my A4 page here, which was the combat / kind of roleplay bits, right? So the players now have basically two options as to how they want to handle this, but they are currently at a little bit of a disadvantage as to the situation that they've put themselves in. So the first one, we have AV and Michael currently standing on the front porch being watched by the two thugs. Now, two thugs, a kidnapping crew does not make, because a law now is walking all the way around the building. When they reach the back of the building, they're going to see two horse-drawn carts, maybe one. I think two would be fun. Kind of give you, I'll tell you why two in a minute. So one or two horse-drawn carts, and then maybe a thug or two extra just out the back there, bundling some people into a cart. Oh no, those are the friends of Merfish. We're going to have to go rescue them. However, Alaw's the only one that knows about this. Uh-oh, what does Alaw do? Michael and Avi now are at the front. They have the opportunity to basically end this completely if they do so choose, by using a little bit of persuasion, by talking to these people a little bit, but they are at a disadvantage and they are going to have to work for it. This isn't going to be a one success defeats everything. It's going to be one success, eases the tension off. Maybe they have to say the right thing. We'll see how that plays out. Now, if they manage to persuade them and kind of say the right stuff, they manage to persuade them, that's it. They'll just go out back, tell them to unbundle those guys. They'll be like, go off. Then these guys will disappear off into the horizon. Maybe to come back, maybe not. Definitely to come back. I've got that hook of like bringing things back now. Like as a DM, that's like the most fun thing that you can do. So they're going to disappear off into the horizon. And the players are now going to have the friends of Merfish. Now they're going to be bruised and battered. Now the reward that the players are going to be getting, 10 gold pieces to split between them. And then also the chance to take the place of Merfish's friends in the magical tournament coming up. Absolutely fantastic rewards, I think, because that gives them a hook into what I think is the major kind of narrative thread of this space, and also plays into all of my characters' wants and needs. They all want to learn about the world. This is a great place to do it. A magical tournament. Let's see what people are made of. Let's see what people can do. Let's see what I can learn. That's over there. Now, if they get into combat, what happens is, or what is going to happen, is that... Oh, well, actually, I should go back a little bit, because that only covers Avi and Michael. What happens to Alaw, who is currently out back, witnessing the people being bundled in? Now, they're on their own. Theirs is going to be an entirely separate thing. Does Alaw go out of his way and try and persuade them not to do it? Does Alaw take it upon themselves and enter into some form of combat? Does Alaw just go back around the building? This is the great thing about being a DM in a game like this. You don't know. That's entirely up to a law at the moment. That's entirely up to Jack, who is a law in that moment. Does he do any of those things? I'll have to figure that out when he does it, because I can't plan for those. My guess is if he tries to persuade them, these guys are going to be a little bit more, our boss says we got to put them in the back, we put them in the back, don't you fucking tell us what to do. They could be a little bit more like that. A law then might have a lot more persuading to do. Where is your boss at the moment? I'd like to speak to them. Could be something like that. Or a law goes in and fights them. It's going to be a tough fight. It's just going to be a law and these guys. And a law's only a caster. It doesn't have much health. I think 4 hit points. That could be 1 hit and they're down. These are choices that a law is going to have to make at the time, and I can't plan for those. Now, if the 2 out front are going to go into combat, the guys outside are going to know about it. They're going to hear that little kerfuffle. They're going to hear the scuffling and stuff. I might make one of the characters, maybe the fox or the cat, run off and tell the others. But the players are going to have to attempt to get through it quickly, because there are carts. Those carts are going to leave. They're going to have a chance to leave. Because the thing that I would love to happen, this would be my ideal outcome to this session, is that they are riding through the streets and they are on horseback and they are chasing down this carriage, and I use a mechanic from Blades in the Dark, which is basically like the escalation ring type of thing. It's basically where you make a circle and you divide it up into however many quadrants that you need. And then, as the session goes on, those quadrants get coloured in, and those quadrants get wiped away. And they're there to represent escalating danger and escalating risk. So, in this instance, this circle will be how close you are to successfully rescuing these kids. You damage one of the wheels, one of the circles gets coloured in. Let's say that cat, fully capable of repairing things, comes out, repairs that wheel. Sorry lads, that one gets rubbed out. Now I'm thinking I'm going to start them with a certain amount already in there. Maybe half of them are coloured in, something like that. That way, there's a set amount that they've already achieved. If they fall to 0, they fail and the carts get away. If they manage to colour them all in, they succeed and the carts are stopped. Now, there are things that they can do to kind of improve that. Maybe inform the law as they're driving past or riding past. That would be a good way of doing it. That way, they have a little bit of extra help in trying to stop the carts. Maybe 1 or 2 get coloured in. But there are things that the thugs and the thieves can do. Maybe they take out the horses of the policemen. No longer police help. 1 or 2 get taken away. Things like that. So that's my ideal situation. But again, this is entirely on what happens between the thugs and AV, Alor, and Michael. And it's entirely what's going to happen on the day. And I can't really plan too much for it. I can have ideas and contingencies. Like I said in my last episode of DM Talks, it's one of those where I'm going to have concepts that can slot in. But no matter what happens on that one, if the players enter into a fight, chase down the carts, and successfully stop them, or don't successfully stop them, what's going to end up happening is the party are going to be joining Murphish. Is it going to be because they are indebted to him because they failed to save his friends? Then they're going to have to help him. Is it because he sees them as valued compatriots and wants them to join his party because his friends are injured and have been rescued? That's also there. The same outcome leading to the same different outcomes leading to the same result, basically, but just with a different flavor added on. So that's basically the plan for the next one. A little bit of a combat, with some interesting kind of chasing down these carts, maybe jumping onto them and like fighting people atop the carts, having the police like chase them down a little bit, having to avoid civilians and signs, and all the real typical things of like atop the train carriage chase, in most westerns, things like that. That's what I'm going to be doing in this next session. So I hope that you join us. I'm going to remind myself what day it was again. Sunday the 8th of March. If you want to like watch and see if any of that comes to pass, please join us on Sunday the 8th of March when we're going to be playing the Urslok Chronicles as powered by the Black Hack 2nd Edition. So I have been Andy, the humble, fuck no, I'm not humble, big-headed as fuck DM. And I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Bye. Oh no, I gotta turn the audio off.